Receptor downregulation. That's what's happening inside your brain right now. You know what you need to do. You've known since this morning, but reaching for it feels heavier than it should. You've tried to get your attention back before. You've deleted the apps. Hide the phone. Sitting at your desk with nothing but the task in front of you. And 11 minutes later, your brain is clawing for stimulation somewhere else entirely. That's not a weakness. That's a regulation problem. The dopamine system has been adapting to an environment it was never designed to handle. If you've ever done a dopamine detox and felt absolutely nothing change, that's why. The detox was never designed to fix the mechanism underneath it. I didn't start researching this because I was curious. I started because the dopamine detox failed on me twice, and both times the same thing happened. The stimulation disappeared, but ordinary life still felt emotionally flat. That's when I realized the detox wasn't targeting the actual mechanism. Dr. Nora Volkow, director of the National Institute on Drug Abuse, spent 20 years mapping what chronic overstimulation can do to the dopamine system. What she found may help explain why some dopamine detox approaches fail, and why, for some people, they can quietly backfire. You wake up. You check your phone before you've fully opened your eyes. You tell yourself, 1 video. You watch 7. You sit down to work. You open the task. You close it. You open something else. Not because you're lazy, because nothing feels like it's worth the effort of starting. The things that used to matter, they still matter in theory, but they don't feel strong enough to move you anymore. Underneath all of this, your dopamine system is running one signal. The signal is not enough. Not enough stimulation. Not enough reward. Not enough to justify the energy. It has been sending that signal every morning for months, maybe years. You've just been calling it by the wrong name. You've been interpreting the signal as a character problem instead of a regulation problem. And this is where the loop deepens. Every time you reach for high stimulation to escape that feeling, the scroll, the snack, the notification, the distraction, your receptors adjust downward. The bar moves higher, the baseline moves lower, and the gap between what you have and what you need gets wider every time, because your brain is adapting exactly the way adaptive systems do. It's adapting, and it's adapting in the wrong direction. You don't have a dopamine problem. You have a dopamine sensitivity problem. Those are not the same thing, and treating one like the other is why nothing works. So if receptors downregulate through repetition, what happens when you stop feeding them the same input? Not a 24-hour fast, not a cold turkey weekend, but a sustained, specific reduction in the signals that drove the downregulation in the first place. In principle, the system doesn't stay desensitized forever. It recalibrates. The real question is, what does that recalibration actually look like? And why does almost everything you've been told about dopamine detoxes get the biology backwards? The override is almost embarrassingly simple. But I need to build it in the right order, because if I hand you the steps right now, they're going to sound like every other protocol you've already tried and abandoned. First, understand what you're actually doing during a dopamine detox. A dopamine detox doesn't remove dopamine. Dopamine isn't a reservoir you empty. It's a signaling system. What you're actually doing, or should be doing, is reducing the frequency of high-intensity dopamine spikes, not eliminating stimulation, reducing the ceiling. Dr. Lembke at Stanford uses a framework that explains this cleanly. Imagine your dopamine system as a seesaw. Every spike has a corresponding dip. The bigger the spike, the deeper the dip. You've been living in the dips. The detox doesn't help, because the moment the stimulation comes back, your brain responds to it the same way again. Understanding the seesaw is the theory. To actually rebalance it, we have to change the weight on both ends. Here's how. For the next 30 days, not 24 hours, 30 days, identify your 3 highest stimulation behaviors. Not all stimulation. 3 specific ones. For most people, short-form video, food reward, distraction loops at work. You don't eliminate them, you cap them. 30 minutes total per category, per day. That is the first step. You don't have to feel motivated to do it. You don't have to enjoy it. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just have to keep the ceiling lower than it was yesterday. Around day 10 to 14, something subtle starts to happen. You'll feel it before you fully understand it. Ordinary things, a conversation, a task you used to avoid, a quiet moment with no stimulation, start to register as slightly more interesting than before. Not dramatically, not like a switch flipped, just slightly more signal. That may be the beginning of your reward system recalibrating. That is your brain adjusting the volume knob back down. Here's what the detox completely ignores. The problem isn't just high-ceiling stimulation. It's the absence of low-level, meaningful reward before effortful tasks, before any high-resistance work, before you open the thing you've been avoiding. Spend 5 minutes on something that produces mild, natural reward. A walk outside, a song you like, something physical, nothing intense. The goal is to prime the baseline, not spike it. What I'm about to tell you is the part most people skip. Because it sounds philosophical. It isn't. It's the biological reason the first step either works or quietly fails without you noticing why. Kent Berridge at the University of Michigan spent years mapping the difference between two separate systems. Wanting, driven by dopamine. Liking, shaped more by the opioid system. Most people living in stimulation debt are high on wanting, low on liking. They crave stimulation, but don't actually enjoy it when they get it. The stimulus ceiling reduces wanting. The dopamine load rebuilds liking. Together, that's the recalibration. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to feel motivated. You need to lower the ceiling for 30 days and prime the baseline before you start. That's the receptor recovery protocol. That's the entire thing. You might be right, but there's another version of this that hides almost perfectly inside high achievement. Here's what it feels like. You're productive, but only on tasks that feel urgent. You can focus, but only when the deadline is close enough to produce anxiety. You work for 6 hours and feel nothing when you finish. Not satisfaction, not pride. Just the need for the next thing. Underneath that feeling is a very specific adaptation. Chronic high output, high stakes work can produce the same kind of reward desensitization as passive overstimulation. The mechanism is similar. Your brain learns that only high urgency, high stakes inputs are worth signaling strongly for. So everything below that threshold, the slow work, the creative thinking, the things that actually matter long term, registers as flat, as not worth starting. You don't have a productivity problem, you have stimulation debt. And the dopamine detox doesn't fix it, because you were never overstimulating in the way people usually describe. You were overstimulating through performance. The most disciplined people are often running the deepest stimulation debt, not despite their discipline. Because of it, stimulation debt doesn't look like laziness. It looks like someone who can only work when the building is on fire. Now comes the part almost everyone misses. Right now, while you're watching this, you are probably already planning how you'll start the protocol tomorrow, or next Monday, or after the current deadline passes. That planning, that's the phantom progress loop running in real time. Your brain gets just enough dopamine from planning the change to make the action itself feel less urgent. The research feels productive, so the behavior stays optional. So here's the only instruction that matters right now. Before this video ends, identify one high stimulation behavior. 1. Cap it today, not tomorrow. Not after you've researched the perfect version of this protocol. Today. Your dopamine system doesn't need a detox. It doesn't need more willpower. It needs a lower ceiling and enough time to remember what signal feels like. You've been chasing stimulation to feel something. The recalibration is quieter than that. It's not a reset. It's a return. And it's already waiting for you, underneath the noise.